Hey guys. Okay, so I'm going to try to make this video short because I've tried to film it several times and I keep getting interrupted. But this is Far from the Madding Crowd by Thomas Hardy. This is going to be my review of this. I'm going to try to make the first bit spoiler free, and then I will let you guys know when I get to spoilers. Basically, I loved this very, very much. I was expecting to love it, but then I heard some people say, like people who've read several of his works, were comparing this to Tess of the D'Urbervilles, saying it wasn't as good. But luckily this was my first Hardy, so I don't know. I can't make that comparison yet. And I just completely loved it. I thought that the writing was beautiful. It was very depressing, but sometimes you want a depressing read. Yeah, so the writing was lovely. I have little tabs of the ones I liked. I think my favorite line in this is, at one point Hardy is talking about Bathsheba's, character, and he says that, as far as her decision-making, she was like Elizabeth I, but in her, heart and spirit, she was more like Mary, Queen of Scots. So I thought that was a really beautiful analogy, and I love, like, the history major knew, she was just going, yay! So that was fantastic. And I'm sorry about the lighting, you guys. It's really kind of overcast outside because it's getting ready to rain, and there's not much I can do about it, unfortunately. But yes, so I loved this. The only thing I had trouble with some of the character flaws. I basically thought that at some points Hardy was trying to beat you over the head with these characters' flaws, rather than just making you understand them. He was basically saying, like, oh, did you know that this guy was bad? Oh, just in case you didn't, here, like, it kind of, I don't know, that was my only issue with this book, is that I feel like their flaws were so defined and, like, blown out of proportion. But yes, I loved, the character of Gabriel Oak. I didn't like Sergeant Troy or not Sergeant Boldwood, Mr. Boldwood, which I will explain more why in the, spoiler section of this review. And with Bathsheba, I was really on the fence, and again, I'll explain that in that section. And if you have read this, and you're looking for a good adaptation, or if you have yet to read it and you're looking for a good adaptation to watch once you have read it, I watched the 1998 adaptation last night with Paloma Beza and Nathaniel Parker, and it was excellent. The acting was great, especially on the two main actors' parts. The story itself kept really, really close to the book, which I thought was excellent. I did have one or two very small issues with the film, but again, I have to talk about that in the spoiler section. Basically, they just changed the dialogue during a scene that was very important in the book, and I don't think that it didn't change the outcome of the story, but it did change the tone of the scene itself, which kind of bothered me a little. But aside from that, it was a excellent adaptation, and I would highly recommend. Okay, so now we're getting into the spoiler section of the book. I did not like Sergeant Troy. His only saving grace to me was the fact that he did love Fanny Robin, but his pride and his inconsistency towards women is what really just screwed him over, because Fanny gets the church wrong when they're supposed to get married, and so she goes to the wrong church, and when he comes out, he has basically been laughed out of the church that they were supposed to get married in. And so she says, you know, I'm sorry, and that's a really easy mistake to make. Like, when you're in a place that you've never been before, and there's two churches with very similar names a block apart from each other, it's really, really easy to go to the wrong church, I think. But he just completely berates her and just completely just he's like, oh, I'm never gonna go through that again, like, I don't know when we're gonna get married because you got it wrong and you humiliated me, and it's like, it was not her fault. Seriously. And because of that one moment of anger and pride, he screwed up their lives for the rest of the book. The rest of the book. It just, and I really liked Fanny. So I felt really bad for her. But yeah, so didn't like that part of Sergeant Troy, and then, he sees Bathsheba and he's like, oh, I love you because you're beautiful, and he doesn't really love her, he just likes the way she looks, and I'm sorry, I'm like messing with my face and stuff. But yeah, so just really did not like him. I thought he was a jerk. And then just the way he treats Bathsheba after they get married, I'm like, why did you marry her? If you were going to treat her like shit, why did you marry her? Like, I understand why she married him, because she just fell in love with the wrong person, which I feel like we've all been there at least once in our lives, where we feel like someone is one way and then they turn out to be another way. I feel like we've all been there. So that part to me was understandable for her, but not for him. Like, no. He basically married her for her looks and her money, and ugh. So yeah, don't like Sergeant Troy, and I did not mind that he died at the end. I really didn't. And then the other person I really was not fond of was Mr. Boldwood, because this guy was, I mean, like, originally you think he's this cool, nice gentleman farmer, which totally chill, until he falls in love with Bathsheba, and then all this stuff comes to the surface that I totally think was, like, boiling beneath the surface before. He is possessive, he has anger management issues, he just, wow. The way he treats her, at one point he's yelling at her to the point where I felt like, he might hit her, and I was like, no, dude, and I do feel like there are parts when I don't like Bathsheba because I feel like she does lead him on, but it gets to a point where he just overpowers her emotionally so much that I can completely understand why she feels backed into a corner and says that she will let him court her or whatever. And yeah, so I don't really like Boldwood. And then with Bathsheba, on the fence, because I love that Hardy makes her this really strong woman who has this great business sense where she runs this entire farm by herself. Not entirely by herself, because obviously she has help, but she decides not to take on another bailiff and just manages the farm by herself with advising help from Gabriel, and I thought that was great. It's, I don't know, it's like showing that Hardy was like ahead of his time as far as women's rights go in that era, which I thought was really cool. And I think that's what a lot of people talk about when they talk about this book. So I thought that was great. But the part where I think he counteracts that is he makes her so stereotypically changeable, I guess is the word. 'Cause she messes with each of these guys' minds, and she doesn't understand what that's going to do to them. And that just, well, okay, I guess she doesn't really mess with Troy's mind because she really does fall in love with him. It's more like he's messing with her. But for Boldwood and Gabriel, she She doesn't, and especially Boldwood, she just doesn't mind, she doesn't consider the consequences. Like, when she decides to send him a Valentine when they've never met, they've never been introduced, and she thinks it would be funny to send him a Valentine. It's like, Valentines back then sent a very specific message. They were very, it was like kind of much more of a formal custom. Like, I mean, now we bring Valentines for every kid in our 3rd grade class, but back then it was like a huge deal, and especially because the stamp on her Valentine said, "Marry me." You don't send a guy a Valentine that says, "Marry me," when you haven't even met him and you're just doing it as a joke. That is not funny. I don't know what makes you think that is funny. Like, oh, it bothered me so much. So yeah, things that she does like that, I'm like, like, it took me until the end of the book to decide whether or not I liked her, and it was honestly, like, I am on the fence. Like, there are times in the book where I'm like, you are so stupid and cruel, and are you serious? Like, how do you not know what this is doing to other people? And then there are times when I'm like, oh man, you go girl, like, mostly when she's running the farm and doing a good job. So, yeah, I just think that she's kind of, well, as Gabriel said, vanity is her downfall, which I agree, vanity is her flaw. So yeah, Bathsheba, but Gabriel, I love Gabriel so much. I think that he is great, and my one thing that bothers me about all of these men, that Gabriel is the only one who redeems this, is that all of these men fall in love with this girl because of her face. That is it. For all they know, she could be a serial killer, and they don't even care because they just fall in love with her face. And I really like how things are with Gabriel, because he does originally love her because he thinks she's beautiful, and he does propose to her when he probably shouldn't. But then as the story goes on and he actually gets to know her, he genuinely falls in love with who she really is as a person. Like, he actually sees her for what she is, to the point where he chastises her for, you know, kind of not understanding that what she's doing to Boldwood is cruel. Like, he's like, hey, you're messing with this guy's mind, that's not cool. And she doesn't like hearing it, but then I guess she, like, realizes that he's the only one who tells her the truth, so she then starts going to him for advice, and that's how their relationship grows and turns into more than friendship. Like, that's how they fall in love with each other, which I think is excellent and just fantastic. But yeah, with Boldwood, he only loves her because he sees her as who he wants her to be rather than who she really is, and that just bothered me a lot. But I think that that's why Gabriel is my favorite character. So yeah, I know that this video has been kind of all over the place, and I'm sorry, but basically, yes, those reasons are why I like some of the characters and don't like others, and why I kind of am about Bathsheba. But that I just, basically the whole point of this video is that I just really, really, really love Gabriel Oak a lot. I think he's great. And as far as the movie goes, Nathaniel Parker's performance was excellent. So was Paloma Beza's as Bathsheba. I highly recommend the 1998 Masterpiece adaptation. And I really loved this book, and 4 out of 5. It was great. The writing is wonderful. I highly recommend picking this up. I'm sorry this video was so long. Please let me know what you thought of anything that I have said. And yeah, I hope that people who haven't read it stopped watching when I started talking about spoilers. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.